being financially responsible. Our whole unit has been about that. We've talked about using credit cards responsibly. We've talked about saving money. We talked about making sure you don't overspend. So this is going to kind of recap all of that. Here are some pieces of advice that we can elaborate on. Pay yourself first, right? Make a habit of putting money into savings first. If you're like, oh, I'm going to do all of this stuff and I'll move it at the end of the month, chances are you will have accidentally spent it. So please, please, please make sure you move to savings first. A good rule of thumb, savings is usually about 10%. Okay? Another good piece of advice is live within your means. Does anyone know what that means? This means don't overspend. Right? You want to make sure that you stay within your budget. Right? If you have $500 budgeted for entertainment things like going to the movies and going to Main Event and eating out, you do not want to spend more than that in the month, right? Stay within your budget. If you have extra money, maybe you didn't spend it all, then put that extra in your savings. Don't just be like, oh, I have extra money, I'm going to go out and just do whatever, right? Be smart about it. Consider needs versus what? Wants. You've probably heard that since elementary, right? Spend on what you need first, right? If there's money left over, then spend money on what you want. So if you want that new Borderlands game that just came out a couple weeks ago, but you need to go buy groceries, then I would go buy those groceries first before I buy the video game. All right? Bless you. Right. You can't eat the video game. All right. Save early and save often. So this kind of goes back to letter A. Make sure that you are paying yourself first and you have money for emergencies. So if you have maybe something breaks on your car, right? Yeah, you would probably need to use your credit card, but you can use that extra money in your savings to go ahead and pay off that credit card at the end of the month or maybe in 2 months, so you're not getting a lot of interest. You want to have the rule of thumb from the day people, whoever they happen to be, about 3 months worth of money in your savings account, right? So if something happens, you lose your job, you can still buy food, you can still pay your rent, you can still pay your car payment. All right? Use credit responsibly. We've talked about this a lot. Don't overspend. That seems to be a good rule of thumb. What happens if we overspend? Then we have a lot of interest to pay, right? We don't want that. Pay off your balance quickly, right? The quicker you pay it off, the less interest you have to pay. Plus, that looks really good when you do that and you get a higher credit score, right? So then you have a lower interest rate. So let's talk about some advice to some different people. Are there any questions on these 5 rules of thumb? Are we good here? Let's apply what we know. Let's talk about Blaine. Blaine's take-home pay is $2,500 each month. He has created a budget to become more aware of where his money goes. So he's got his rent and electricity. Notice that is the highest. That tends to be the biggest piece. Your rent or your mortgage, usually about 30% of your budget. Food and groceries, gas, insurance, spending money. Phone and internet, and gym membership. I remember when phone and internet was a want and not a need. It really is kind of a need nowadays. What advice would you give Blaine concerning his budget? What do you think maybe we should tell him? Hannah, what do you think? All right, lower spending money. Okay, so you can use public transportation to lower your gas and insurance. What is missing from his budget here that we talked about? Okay, maybe college. What about maybe he needs to add savings? There's no savings here. What if something happens? He doesn't have any savings to help him out. Yeah, insurance is not the same as savings. All right, so look at what Blaine decides. He's gonna join a cheaper gym for $40 a month. So this is gonna become $40. Yeah, that's a lot for a gym membership. Reduce his spending to $200, which is something that was mentioned. And he can get a phone internet package for $175. So how much is he going to save if he does this? Well, let's look. This is $35 that he saved, right? And then what's a $250 to $175? Yeah, so we got 35 plus this is 75. How much did he save here? He saved a lot here. 140. Look, he's saving $250 a month. So that maybe if he does that, he ends up putting this much money in his savings account. How much is that for a whole year? What would we do to find out for a year? Yeah, so we're going to say 250 times 12, $3,000 a year. That's a pretty good little nest egg. That way, if something were to happen, he has some money to help him out. All right? Paul wants to buy a truck that's $8,000 for his business. He has $6,200 in his savings, and he can finance the rest for 4.7%. This is not a bad interest rate on a used vehicle. What advice could you give Paul, and what factors should he consider as he tries to make a financially wise decision? What do you think we should tell Paul? What do you think? Do we think he should, like we talked about up here, if he's using credit? Obviously, he's not overspending. He's not financing the whole amount, but maybe he should try to pay off the balance as quickly as possible. Because then he doesn't have that payment anymore, and then he's got that money he can put back into his savings account that he took out to pay for that vehicle. Does that make sense? And remember, they're going to give you a monthly payment that's going to include interest and the principal, but you can always pay extra. Say his payment is $200 a month. I don't know, I'm just making up a number. He could pay $300, and that extra $100 goes to the principal. And as you pay that principal down, what happens to your interest? It also goes down. So you're not spending as much money if you can pay it off fast. All right, let's check out Valerie. Valerie works at a bank, and she advises homeowners to make sure their mortgage payment doesn't exceed 30%. We talked about this a few minutes ago. Find the maximum mortgage payment that anyone can afford and explain the guidelines. Okay, so let's think about our percent tricks that you did last year. How do I find 10%? divide by 10, or you move your decimal once, right? So 10% of 2,000 is 200. If I want 30%, what am I going to do? I'm going to times it by 3. What's 200 times 3? $600. What about here? 10% is 300 times 3 is 900. What about here? 1,200. I heard someone. Good job. And here? 1,500. Now, a couple of things to keep in mind. When I first started teaching, I was just me. And my apartment was about $500 a month. So, I would be within this. It was a very, very tiny apartment. It was like a fourth of the size of this room. It was like 500 square feet. It was very, very tiny. But if you're wanting to be in a place that's larger, maybe it exceeds this amount. Well, that's okay. That's why some people have roommates, right? Because then there's more money. You can split this, and there's more money that you can share. So, and then eventually, when you get way, way, way older, and maybe you find you're someone special, if you get married, then maybe you have more income, right? That means you can afford something that's a little more expensive. But you don't want to exceed this 30% depending on the income. All right? So stay within your means is the key here. If you're like, ooh, I really like that apartment, and you're in this category, and it's like $1,000, $1,200 a month, guys, apartments are expensive as well as mortgages. Then, then you're maybe looking at getting a roommate because you don't want to use all of your money on a place to live. Then you still got to pay all those other things we talked about, right? You got to be able to eat and such. Eating is a good thing. It is. Adrian wants to build his savings by saving 10% of his paycheck. For each paycheck, what is the amount he should save to meet his goal? So 10%, you move your decimal 1 to the left, or you divide by 10. We talked about that. 1875, 1417, 1553, 1706. And those amounts don't sound like a lot. But I'm looking, based on this paycheck, this is probably someone who works hourly as opposed to up here. This is what we call salary, right? They get the same amount of money no matter how many hours they work. Like me, I work all these hours at home. I still get paid the same amount of money. Whereas hourly is going to be like you get paid for every hour that you work, right? So this doesn't seem like a lot of savings, but is it still financially responsible behavior? Yes. Yes, you need to save when you can. Okay? And even though it doesn't seem like a whole lot, it's going to add up. All right? Let's look at Christina. Her bank account, or Christian has $86.50. Sorry about that. In his account, and he just picked out a hat and a pair of shoes. But there's also sales tax. All right, yeah, so we need to find this total. So we're going to add $24.99 plus 56. So now Christian, I said it right that time, is at $24.99 plus 56. So he's at $80.99. Is he good so far? Well, so far, but then there's tax. So if you remember, tax is a percentage. You can do this a couple of ways. You can do part whole, right? So part is the tax. The whole is his $80.99. That's our 100%. We have 8.75% over 100. Part over whole equals percent over 100. So we can do $80.99 times 8.75 divided by 100. So his tax amount is we'll call it 7.09 because they're going to round up on you. What do we do? What does tax do to our total? It adds. So we got to say this plus 709. And now he's at what? If you do $80.99 plus 709, He's at $88.08. So is Christian being financially responsible? It says he's going to would using his debit card for the purchase be a financially wise decision? Danielle says no. Why? Right. He doesn't have enough money. What happens when you try to use your debit card and you don't have enough money? What kind of fee is that? Right? Overdraft fee. You do not want an overdraft fee. What advice would you give Christian? Okay. What? Maybe buy only one. Could we say consider need versus want? Maybe he really does need new shoes. Maybe there's a hole in it. Or he could maybe you could buy cheaper. Maybe he needs to use a credit card, but pay it off, right? Quickly. Yeah. Does he need the hat, right? All right, Ronaldo took out, 2 loans, one for a car, one for a boat that he likes to use with his friends on the weekends. Last month, the boat had an expensive part that needed to be replaced, and he paid his boat payment late. That's not good. This month, he had a medical emergency, and he paid his car payment late. Do banks like to see that word late? No. Is his behavior financially responsible? No. What should he do? What do you think? Probably sell the boat. You don't need a boat, but it's fun. Right? We can say late payments equal low credit score, which means what? What does a low credit score equal? Good, high interest. All right, Candace uses a credit card for her rent and gas, and she pays the total balance off at the end of the month. Is that good? Yes. She earns 1% cash back on every dollar she spends, and she uses that to pay for gifts for her kid's birthday. Is this financially responsible? Yes. It's a big all caps yes. Absolutely. Gus plans to attend college, but he will need to take out student loans. He wonders if taking out the loan is financially responsible. What advice would you give Gus? And what should he consider when looking at the loans? Yes. Right. He could do a work study, right, to help offset the cost. He could look at getting a scholarship or a grant. Right? He needs to look and remember that student loans are low interest rates, right? So that is all about being financially responsible. Your job before you come in here tomorrow is to do the homework that goes with this. So if you turn the page, it looks long, but it's not. You're going to read the situation, and then you're going to circle. You need to circle. It says circle the choice you feel is most financially responsible. So it's kind of like multiple choice or true false, right? And tell me why. Why do you believe that's the best choice? So you've got 4 of those. That won't take you very long because you guys are getting really good at this. And then on the back side, this one's a little bit different. You're going to read the situation. Tell me if the decision or the behavior is financially responsible. So here's what I'm going to tell you, though. It says explain why. You only need to explain why if it's not financially responsible. If it is, that kind of goes without saying. So yes, it's financially responsible. That's all you need to tell me. If you're like, nope, this is not smart with your money, tell me no and tell me why, or you could even tell me what should be done instead. And there are like 6 of those, but this is not going to take you that long, and we'll go over it tomorrow before we do our test review, okay?